welcome to the Sci-AI podcast. This is episode number 3. And today, with extreme pleasure and excitement, I would like to share with you all that my guest is my sister, Shelly Dahiya Bhasin. She has been a long-time researcher in the field of socio-economic development, climate change, women's empowerment, child rights, and more. She has earned a master's degree from School of Planning and Architecture in Delhi and also from Jawahar Nehru University in Delhi. So welcome to our podcast, Shelly. Pleasure to know that you're so hardworking and done so much work, so much great work in your career. Very, very proud of you. And so how do you think today and how are you doing?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm equally excited, and this is like never been dreamed of that I would be a guest on a podcast, and that too of my brother. So I'm really excited and very, very happy. Thank you for this opportunity. So today I really look forward to share some of my ideas, my motivations, my journey with you, and a lot of chit chats along with that. And so look forward to that. Thank you.
Excellent. And just to update our viewers and listeners, today it's our father's birthday as well. So that is the reason why I am wearing his uniform. He's no more with us, but we still kept his memories. He was in Indian Air Force, and this is his dress. I wear it with a lot of pride. And so let's get forward then, Shelly, to our discussion.
Sure.
So if you can share your experience, in development sector, socio-economic development, like we discussed, climate change, women rights and women empowerment, child rights and more. Yeah.
So I think these are the areas which are really close to my heart. Therefore, my experience is, I would say, a bit diverse and full of experiences from India, from other parts of the world. Especially my interest lies in working with the communities. So, and I feel really fortunate to have worked across the spectrum of development sector, working with the communities on the field, on the ground, and also to have worked with some of the international organizations who are there managing the big programs. So basically at the fulcrum of the programs, and also to have worked with several other government partners, including government of UK and India, and also to have experience of working with different kind of individuals. So starting from researchers from different parts of the world, from Africa, Asia to Latin America, to also to work with like communities, like people, right? Children, women on the ground or in the backward rural areas, and also to have worked with other individuals like who are at a very prime positions in the government setup, including the administrative services officers in India, to also have worked with policies and decision makers, ministries across the world. So this basically is my experience that I would summarize of working from different individuals and partners across the themes, like you mentioned, on climate change, on women's empowerment, and also urban development, child rights, and also the fact of working with with young entrepreneurs from countries like Argentina and other places in Latin America. So this is more about my experience across about more than 12 years now.
Excellent. What is your opinion then on communities in rural areas of the world, like for example in India, Africa, and other economically behind nations that are not as powerful as the West or the developed nations?
Yeah, it's a very interesting point that you raised, and I think communities, whether in rural areas or urban areas, they all are quite powerful, and they have their own advantages, they have their own strengths and weaknesses. But particularly in rural areas, I would say working in different communities, like I said, in India and globally as well. In rural areas particularly, I found that communities in these parts of the world are very, very cohesive. They are really inclusive. They have their own world of working. They are pretty intelligent. They know how to utilize their resources, existing resources, and really to make a living out of it. For instance, I remember my work experience of working in some of the very, very difficult terrains in India, in one of the states, Jharkhand state in India. And that state, particularly in that region, this is a tribal region of India. I went there and I worked with the children, with the villagers. So essentially working on sensitizing them on the child rights and also subsequently supporting them with more opportunities of livelihood. So that experience really told me, in fact, informed me that these children, these communities, they are very smart in their thinking. They are very, very open. So they just need opportunities to really advance their actions. So if we really provide them a bridge, more resources to really connect them with, I would say, so to say, advanced regions or advanced nations, if we provide them a bridge and the resources, I think they can really excel a lot in that front. So be it India or Africa or any other part of the world, in Latin America, for instance, I think rural areas are very, very smart, and the communities are very inclusive. They are very development oriented. Yeah.
Excellent. Yes. How would you manage it? Like, you have to bring better education resources to these communities and then also uplift their economies by adding more jobs and more businesses, helping entrepreneurs and startups to start their own ventures so that it helps their economies and uplift their overall growth and prosperity.
That's true. I think that's true. Because in most of these rural areas, like I said, the most lacking thing is availability of basic resources. For instance, piped water, which ensures a good health, availability of health infrastructure, which ensures their longevity of their life, education infrastructure, which ensures that they are getting the best of education and they are advancing really, and also opportunities to create advanced livelihood options. So what they normally, the rural areas, they are living in subsistence based livelihoods, like they just produce, they consume, and they live. But that is a cycle that they are living into. If they really want to, and I'm sure they all want to be more advanced. So for that, they really need more roads, more connectivity, IT infrastructure, education, water, for instance. So all these basic fundamental necessities, if are given at the right time and in a due course of time, I think they have a lot of potential, therefore, to grow in all spheres of their life.
I remember we both traveled to these small towns and some cities as well back in 2006 when you were going on a field trip or something from JNU. How did you see it now after so many years? The communities there grown or have been benefited by, either the local entrepreneurs or because of government policies or the overall structure of the economy of the country helping these small communities. How do you see that?
I think the very idea of us, you being a big supporter to me on the field. So I think the very idea of going there was to really assess what is their existing situations, how well they're doing, how the road infrastructure, which is basically the express highway that is connecting two big cities.
Yeah.
So
that
what
was
has
fantastic
been
even at that time. Right.
Indeed, yeah. And so what has been the spillover effect of the economic spillover effect of those construction of those highways?
Right.
Because highways are constructed with the idea of linking development to development and also then bridging the gap spilling over the development in those areas where there's need for development. So the area I think that we visited long ago, at that point in time, it was really brimming with growth opportunities. I saw that even in the small towns, they had really good possession of IT gadgets, for instance, cars,
computers,
computers. They had TVs, fridges. They had good supply of electricity, and also the roads. I mean, I was really impressed with the kind of really metallic roads that were connecting these small towns and villages with the main roads. So arterial roads are as good as the main roads. So just picking up from there, at that point in time, about 10 years ago, they had a lot of potential to grow. And with correct policies in place, with really a political will to support development in small towns and rural villages, and of course, like we see a very visionary leadership of some of our really visionary statesmen in the state, I am assuming that this region has really grown a lot of times, and I would say their growth trend must have seen a very, very progressive trajectory over these 10 years. Yeah.
Good work. Yeah. What are smart cities, or what is smart cities development? Like you said, including cities working with government partners, working with government and city partners. What is it?
Yeah, I think smart city, this concept is basically coined by some of those very niche researchers, those who thought that there is a need to really uplift and accelerate the process of IT, information technology and communication in cities. So the smart cities concept usually says that a city which has the best of IT infrastructure or state of art is very advanced information technology based infrastructure in the city, that is a smart city. I would say the smart cities notion began from the West particularly, because they were really advancing on that front and long time ago. But towards the east side of the world, I think the concept is still at a very, I would say, progressive stage, not a nuanced stage, but at a very progressive stage. In India, for instance, we have a number of cities in India which have been nominated as to be developed as smart cities, which means, Bangalore is there, Hyderabad there, and we also have other brimming cities like Jaipur, and also Delhi. Delhi and Mumbai are like already quite big, but these second-tier cities are really advancing on IT front, and they are accelerating on that front in terms of calling themselves smart cities in just few years from today. So smart cities, to me, I think is a city which has good accessibility to information technology, internet, communications, and basically has all its resources linked with the IT infrastructure, and whatever is available in the city can be really counted, and therefore more innovative solutions, IT innovative solutions can be deployed. For instance, if I would say in Varanasi, I was working with the Department for International Development long ago. In Varanasi, the city was picked as to be transformed as smart cities. So in that city particularly, the government was really supporting deploying IT infrastructure, internet and Wi-Fi facilities available on railway stations, in marketplaces, plazas, and such areas where basically public are in a position to access advanced communication services. Yeah. So these are some of the cities which are really brimming in India with smart cities concept in place. Yes.
Fantastic. And unimaginable that a small city like Varanasi, not so developed, like Delhi or Mumbai, and still doing all these things like you mentioned. So, I just hope that all the cities in India and towns can replicate that model so that the growth becomes super, super strong. Great. Yeah. So can you share your experience and knowledge, in the UN women or tea industry for women rights?
So basically, United Nations Agency for Women Rights is basically aimed to support gender equality and women's empowerment globally across all the countries that we are working with. In my experience, and I would say these are really my personal opinions, I'm not saying on behalf of the organization. So I think the organization, the UN Women Organization, is particularly working with ensuring that women's rights are secured, that all the women are having equal opportunity to excel, to live a dignified life. They are not experiencing any form of violence. They are given opportunities of advancing their livelihoods, a better life opportunity, life quality, and also, finding ways where we can really transform the social norms, behaviors, and gender stereotypes. So these are the kind of agendas, especially referring it to the Sustainable Development Goal of United Nations. So goal number 5 is the focus of our organization. Of working with the organization particularly on the tea industry. As you know, the tea industry in India is really age old. Some would say it's a colonial industry, about having a history of 300, 400 years old. In India, particularly, you would find tea gardens and tea estates in the eastern part of India, and also in the southern part of India.
Darjeeling
not really in
and
the north.
others.
Yeah, Darjeeling, Assam, essentially, and then in the south you have other states. So, working on the issue of women's rights and ensuring that women are not experiencing any form of violence, they are free from any kind of violence.
Right.
Both in the public space as well as in the private space as well as in the cyberspace. So ensuring these actions are undertaken. I got to work with some of our partners in the tea industry, and the learnings were really, really diverse and very informing. We got to visit some of the tea gardens in Assam, and also we learned there that the community as a whole is basically it's a tribal community. Those were migrated to the tea gardens long ago, and their generations are again, serving on the tea estates for really long. The problem that was encountered in these tea industries and has come to the fore is that in supply chain of the tea industry, it was found that there was amount of violence against women and girls, and there was a kind of I would say violence encountered in different forms in the private space where they live, because they live in the same community, they live in the tea communities, tea estates. So they actually face violence from their partners. They also face violence from the tea industry companies, and also there are the staff there essentially. So these are the kind of problems that had cropped up, and therefore we reached there. We learned that these communities are they're very humble. They are very inclusive. They're really welcoming, and especially the women. So we've worked with the women, particularly women communities, women and girls there, and then with their efforts and in their leadership, we really helped them in really gathering their energy together and form women's empowerment clubs, for instance, where some of the selected women were encouraged to come together, think about, share their issues of violence if they have faced any violence, and they're really feeling harassed about something by their partner, by the family, by any other staff in the tea estates. So they can share their concerns. And also, we ensured that these clubs, women empowerment clubs, are supplied with a lot of resources to read. For instance, in India, for instance, we have a number of legislations which are there to protect the women's rights, which are there to protect their rights for livelihood, for protection. So we gave them the resources. We ensured that we build a lot of awareness and sensitization around the issues of violence in the tea industry. So this was a long-term engagement with the community as well as with the tea industry partners in that particular state, and with the government partners, of course. And so together, we, all the partners came together, and then we really worked on the issues, and the impact has been substantial. We can really see now that women, especially these women empowerment clubs, which are formed in these tea estates, they are working really good. The women are feeling, for instance, I would just quote an example here that, a woman whose opinion was, so basically they have a bichar kind of system, an informal system of calling bichar, which is where if, for instance, a women and men, they are in a conflicting position and they have some issues, they would come there, the whole community would sit there along with few men, and they have to divulge all the details. So, all that is happening with them. So, and they have so some would call this as an informal way of treating the issue. But this is not the way, this is not a correct way, because we have the legislations, we have the laws in place which ensures that women are not subjected to violence, any form of violence. Right. So in this particular case, the example that I'm quoting here is that this women, before we went there and we did a baseline kind of survey assessing what is their situation, what are the kind of issues that they face. So this lady, she quoted that we do face a lot of intimate partner violence on everyday basis.
Okay.
And and we don't know where to go. So we really look out to the bichar system, and whatever they say, we accept it. It is my destiny. This is what she said. But with the intervention, with the kind of work that we did in the tea industry for some amount of time, I think the impact has been that now this particular lady says that now I know my rights. And I know that, and I know that bichar system, the informal system, is not the way to go. I know my rights. There is a district and state level legal services available for me. There are counseling services available for me by the government, by the state. I will reach out to that. And these are my rights. I am aware of my rights. And that has really catapulted the relationship with the husband as well. Now the husband is more supportive. So, the stories are changing now.
The dynamics have changed,
Dynamics have changed, while it was really violence oriented before, it is now more of a balance, I would say, a balanced theory is coming in the relationship. So this is the change that we have observed in the tea industry, particularly from the perspective of women's rights.
Fantastic, great work. I mean, these are some of the things that do not get highlighted and just go under the carpet, but fantastic. I mean, to help people who do not have the power, the strength to fight it themselves, and to put them into such kind of process and helping them is really something that our future generations should also do, because I mean, everything's good. The tech, the capitalism, the growth of the world, and everything's good, but there is still millions and millions of people like these that you said are underprivileged, and it is incumbent upon us to help them. So really great work. Thank you for sharing that. What are other countries doing right now that India is not in the field of women's rights, gender equality and child rights? What are they doing better? What is it that India can do better in this domain?
Well, I would say India is doing a lot already. There have been really some of the very nuanced and very, very refined policy decisions taken. And it is not from today. I mean, I think India has been really responsive and sensitive to women's rights and child rights from really long. There have been numerous schemes and programs launched by different states in India, which are really taught the good impact on women and girls and other genders as well, and child rights. For instance, I would say in the state of Kerala, we have a scheme called Kudumbashree, launched by the state government, and the objective is largely to support the women with housing schemes, those who really don't have access to houses and they are facing a lot of issue, or those who have migrated to cities in search of work and they need a place to live. So these are really small issues, but together the idea is to support women on this front and many other as well. So there are many states like Tamil Nadu's there, like we have Karnataka, we have Gujarat. These are the states where they are really pioneering on the front of women's rights and child rights. But and if I refer to other countries in the world, I think other countries, what best they're doing is that they are really doing a lot on front of policy making. So their policies are made in a way that are really looking into advancing the opportunities of livelihood generation, economic opportunities, ensuring that women in informal sector or formal sector, they have access to resources, access to services. So these nations, particularly in the West, for instance, they had thought about the paternity leaves and the maternity leaves in a very, very much advanced way and very long time ago. So, and for instance, there is also, if you would go to Africa or to other Latin American nations, you would find that their policies and their directives are advanced in terms that they are really focusing on how to provide opportunities for women on economic livelihood fronts. So assisting them with resources that women need to progress and to excel in their life. In India, what I would say really need a lot of work is essentially to really craft policies at a momentum which is really fast. So we really have to be upfront. We really have to think about better ways, better policies in place, and also to ensure that we hear from the field. It is really important to hear women's voices. What is there? What is the problem on the ground? And how we can really deal with it and quickly. So all these things in India, particularly, it takes a lot of time. So we really need to cut down on the transaction costs, on the time that is involved.
Bureaucracy.
Plus bureaucracy and other challenges that are there, and they are really limiting the crafting of policies for ensuring women and child rights. Already for past few years, I could see that government is really putting a lot of efforts in bringing up the voices from the field. They are involving civil society organizations in consultations and dialogues. But I think there is a need to do it more. I think what we're doing right now is less. And also really to find out ways to cut down on red tapeism, to cut down on bureaucracy, because these hierarchies and these bureaucracies, they really create a lot of hindrance, as I said, to draft policies which are timely, which are really needy and focused and targeted. So I think this is, in my mind, what we are doing right and what we really need to work upon.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, great stuff. Okay, so as a researcher in this field and an experienced professional, you've seen so much in, women's empowerment. You've worked with global organizations like United Nations. What would you like to do in the future? Like, is it something related to this, or you have something completely different aspirations for yourself in the future when, say, perhaps you have little kids right now, but when they are grown and, on their own, what is it that you want to do? What are you passionate about?
Yeah, thank you. This question is really close to my heart. But I am of a person who is really committed to my field. I really feel driven, as I said, and I'm really passionate about my aim to give back to the society in whatever way I can do. So for past 10, 12 years, I'm doing so. But I think I also there's a researcher element in me, and I really would like to explore that more by really investing my time and energy in future in terms of exploring the really different facets of the nature, particularly from the perspective of climate change. And therefore, keeping that in mind, I'm really planning to pursue PhD if possible and opportunity is given. I would really do a lot of would really want to do research in in the Arctic, southern Arctics of the nation,
Okay.
of the globe, yeah, and really work close to the nature. Because I believe that everything, if we are really close to the nature, we really progress faster and we really feel at peace. So, and this is, I think, this applies to everybody on living being on this earth, human being, that if you really stay close to the nature, you feel more content, you feel more happy, peaceful. So keeping that in mind, I think I would really invest my time and energy looking in the future in terms of researching deeper in these particular very, very sensitive zones of the world, and explore what is there, how really we can give back to the nature again. Yeah.
Climate change is something that the whole world is talking about, and we would need more researchers, more people who can do more credible work in this field. How is India doing different from other countries as per your experience? You've traveled to different universities where you've done your research and certifications and your education, and also worked with many global organizations. So what is your view? How is India doing different, wrong or right in the field of climate change and rural urban planning?
It's really important to get a perspective that, India is now playing a very, very crucial and a very critical role in climate change, particularly. Having worked with and studied at some of the universities in the West, particularly in Europe, I observed that the experience and the diversity of experience that India can bring to the international forums and international discussion dialogues on climate change, I think it's pretty impressive. It is also because India has, we all know that India has diverse climate, there's diverse topography, there are so many different kind of water source systems, the soils are different, the people are different, everything in India, you can really find the whole world in this small island. Small subcontinent. So I think particularly in terms of climate change, while India is progressing with its efforts, I think it really needs to put a lot of effort on innovative thinking. And plus the fact that more Indian impression must be formed in terms of its participation, in terms of its engagement with global partners, with global stakeholders who are really working towards the issue of climate change. If I can give you an example, for instance, if we talk about the climate change and some of the ways to really counter it, we recently have had a really visionary leadership from our Prime Minister, where he has launched no single-use plastic in India. So these kind of projects and innovations really are working well on the ground. However, we really need community support. So, these solutions, these innovative thinkings on really tackling the climate change issue must come from the communities, because they are the one on the ground, they are facing the issues, they are facing the wrath of climate change. For instance, if we can talk about, the floodings in India. Recently, we have had a lot of flooding, both in the west and the east part of India, and also in the north. That is really destroying the properties, the resources, the human beings, living beings. We have the world's biggest mangroves, for instance, in east of India. So there should be ways, and there are ways, in fact, if you would like to consult the communities, and the communities work together with the government, with other partners, with innovative thinkers, experts. If they all come together, particularly in the Indian context, I think there are so many ways in which we can counter climate change. We can really reverse the process of climate change. But in terms of, I think this is also linked with the growth trajectory that India and other countries are adopting.
Yeah.
Particularly with reference to the Netherlands, where I got an opportunity to study. And they're really pioneering examples and initiatives on how to manage the water resources. This particular country is, I would say, below the sea level. So how is possible on Earth to really survive, not only survive, but also to grow, on different fronts while you are really living below the water? So this country has pioneered its efforts with inclusionary IT technology, with really, really advanced state-of-art infrastructure, both on engineering front and also on scientific front. They are really doing commendable jobs. They are putting a lot of resources in research and development to really advance the frontiers on managing water resources, not only on its shores, but also internally. Whenever there is any amount of flooding, you will never see any puddles there. You will not see that the cities are drowning or that particular area is badly affected with water. They have adopted really innovative and very, very simple technologies, really co-joined them with more advanced technology. In fact, these days they are adopting AI-based technologies.
Wow.
to map which areas at what point in time they really can project the issue of watering or the issue of flooding in those particular regions. And then quickly, they're very, very agile in terms of adopting ways to counter that problem. So they really don't falter on their time to manage the issues. I think we have really a lot of learning from this particular nation as well as other countries in Europe that India can really learn on how to best manage its better water resources and also therefore plan accordingly their regions, their cities and their rural areas. So I think this whole concept of planning, regional planning, urban planning and rural planning, the heart of it is filled with the concept of resilience. In times of the crisis, the health hazards or the natural hazards, how do you react? What are the resources available? Whether they are technology enabled, how fast is the system adapted to respond to those crises? So this is at the center of the planning initiatives in India. I think those also need a lot of refurbishment, I would say, a lot of resources and a lot of policy and political support is required, along with the IT infrastructure and engineering marvels that India is already creating, along with the rest of the world in this world. So I think it's both, again, give and take. You have a lot of resources available, but you also really need to reinvent, innovate, inclusionary AI-based technologies. Such things really can work wonders for India. Yeah.
That is fascinating. Can you build on what kind of AI technologies are there currently that can help in understanding more about the floods and about the climate and how is AI? Because as you know, my podcast also covers artificial intelligence, as a topic. So can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah. I think with the advancing technology that we have, I think AI has very, very pivotal role when we are working with the nature. So one of the prime point where we really see that AI is supporting currently on dealing with the issues, particularly in cities, is essentially to map the heat zones, for instance, in the cities. And I would quote these examples with some of the cities where we got an opportunity to visit and work with the local research institutions there. So these cities are deploying AI-based spatial mapping techniques where they are mapping the heat waves and the heat patterns in the city across a time period. And the objective of mapping that is basically to understand in which area or in which zone of the city we have more heat waves, where the temperature is more than the other. The objective is essentially is to identify those hot spots. That can be done with, so there are different sensors, for instance, has been deployed in different parts of the city. So, for instance, on the bus stops or in the public plazas, it therefore collects the data sent to the satellites. The imageries are sent back to the research stations, and all those maps are then co-created, layered together.
Wow.
For instance, the geographic information system is heavily in use these days. I think
GIS,
mapping heat, GIS, heat wave mapping is part of GIS as well. And in GIS also we have now advanced form of GIS where we have predictions coming in terms of cyclones or the typhoons which are hitting the coastal areas. So, for instance, if I could give an example
Yes.
of India again, where I could say in my based on my experience and my knowledge, I think a decade ago or so, we really had not too advanced technologies, and AI was not much in use. Therefore, whenever we have, because we have a very, very long coastline, and whenever there is a change in season, these coasts are really disturbed a lot. There are a lot of havoc caused on the coast, and we lose a lot of resources, both natural and man-made. But over the period of time, we can now say that in the current period, with the adoption of, like I said, AI-based technologies using satellite imageries, and also plugging it back with the imageries captured from the ground, then also connecting it with predictions that are made or the trends that have been observed in the past. So bringing all these technologies and the projections together, today I think we have really predicted well the typhoons that have hit the east coast of India. Prediction really helps in terms of diverting the resource loss. We could really save on lives, we could save on the loss of resources, we could really build the resilience of that region to really fight back and build back better. If I could give an example, for instance, of a West country, like I said, from the Netherlands, if I be quote here, is that over there the authorities are now mapping the heat level index in the cities. The objective there is to identify which areas that they can plant more trees. They can really nullify the temperature levels and bring them down so that there are no variations in the temperature. There is less of energy use in those parts of the city, and therefore there is less of emissions, gas emissions in the climate, and therefore reducing the impact of climate change. So I think at all levels, we all are progressing, but there are there's a lot of scope, of course, to learn from each other. As we can see, the West has really advanced on the front of adopting AI-based technologies, GIS technologies, in predicting health, in predicting natural behaviors and natural disasters, and also identifying opportunities on how really we can use these incidences of disaster to our benefit. For instance, if I can quote Sweden, is one of the country in the world which is like 99% optimizing the use of wind. So with the use of windmills, the whole system of energy is really optimizing the winds in that region, and their dependency on coal-based generation of electricity is really low. So there are, as I said, there are a lot of inspirations, technologies available, resources are there.
Is there any information exchange also among countries based on this topic, or is it that the West is working with the Western countries, while East is just lying on its own, like India working on its own silo or China working on its own silo? And
No, I think it is a collective responsibility. If this climate change is occurring, I think this is the collective responsibility of all the nations globally, not only the East or the West. But what matters is that who is learning from whom and how open we are for accepting the change. If I could say that, the technologies that West has adopted, they are little resource intensive. It requires a lot of infrastructure. There is really a lot of funds invested in research and development, and also deployment of these technologies. And that is the factor that we are in the West, in the East, essentially the developing countries, we are facing that challenge of how to mobilize resources and how to adopt those really high-tech AI-enabled technologies which are expensive and really high resource intensive. Therefore, the countries like India, if I can say, or China, we really go for the innovations which are locally enabled, which have been thought through or which have really grown from the ground. But I think there is a need. My personal view is there is a need for balancing the two. You need to have local solutions, but it is always it always works if you have like global solutions merged with the local solutions with the resources. I think that is the way forward, and therefore then we can really take steps in averting the impact of climate change all across the nations.
building on to that, how do you like the future generations to think about nature, our civilization, and what kind of work should be done to help mitigate climate crisis, in your opinion?
Well, I think the generation, not the future, but the existing generation, they are pretty sensitive. They are really aware about their responsibilities. It is also because they've been exposed to a lot of, a lot of resources, a lot of knowledge, lot of discussions. I would say I can say that really the young generation are participating now more vociferously, more with a lot of intent and really a desire to bring the change. They are really thinking about their future, and they want a future which is not dangerous, which is not endangered, and then they are feeling responsible for that. We really, if I could name some of them, we have Greta Thunberg, we have other people, other young people who are really making a lot of change. They are becoming a voice of change, I would say, a voice of this generation and the future generation as well. And I think in terms of their contribution, what they can do is be sensitive of their actions. This is what was lacking from the previous generation. The kind of actions that they have taken for development, for progress, was not too sensitive towards nature. So I think this is the difference that this generation can bring, is to stay and remain sensitive to the steps that they're taking, keeping in mind that it is always if you take something from the nature, it is your responsibility to give it back to the nature. So this whole cycle of, life cycle of taking and giving back, I think this is what they need to be more sensitized about, and I think they are pretty sensitive about that. We need to make them more aware. I'm saying we because we have, all of us have gathered a lot of knowledge, and that we can really share with this generation. So, for instance, if I could say here about the plastic use, the West blames the East, or the East blames the West, that a lot of plastic is generated and it has been disposed in the oceans. It is really creating a havoc to flora and fauna of the oceans. The whole, the essence of the nature is water, and we are really destroying it. Right. So the I would say, the step of really abandoning the use of single-use plastic is what this generation can do. As some of the really initial steps that they can take. Because starting from this, I think they will become more sensitive. They know that whatever we create, I think there is an alternative of that particular resource, which is not destroying the nature, which is not having a negative impact on nature. So these are some of the ways in which they are already thinking. This generation, the next generation, are thinking about it, and they are pretty sensitive. It's just that we really need to also hear them out when they have some propositions, they have some proposals, and really need to include those suggestions in policy decision making and such fronts where the future is really dependent on key decision makings, on progress, or key policy making on development sector.
Yeah.
So this is where we can bring a change.
Great point. And since it begins from the home, let me also share and digress a little bit on this, that my wife, as you know, Swati, she works at IKEA, and IKEA is, transforming the way they are using plastics in all their products, whether it is packaging or product development. So she's working on this project and took this project recently, a global project, to sort of transform plastics used in IKEA, so it is 100% sustainable. And not just people, but I think big organizations like IKEA and others have to step into this in order for climate change to be averted. Otherwise, scientists are already talking about how bad it is right now, and every year we can see the ice melts happening in Antarctica and Arctic, and also so many changes happening in different countries. I mean, we can see Germany and Belgium getting flooded, which has not happened for many decades. India is, of course, one of the examples of that, being so much hot every year, and many other more examples. So, yeah, like you said, I mean, it is incumbent upon us as a society, and also organizations, professionals, to sort of work on this. Otherwise, we don't have another planet. This is our only home, and we have to keep our home clean and safe. So, yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Great point. Thanks for sharing that as well. Yeah. Okay, good. Let's get on to a little bit of personal touch to the questions that I have for you. So, as a mother, what would you like your kids to become one day? Do you have any aspirations for them? Of course, I mean, they choose their own path, but what have you thought for Yug and Meher?
So I think that these kids should be really responsible in their stuff. In whatever direction that they go, that they see their future, whether it's exploring the nature, supporting the nature, or supporting development in any which way, I think they should be really responsible in their actions. That will really bring the change. And because I work for the change, I really want to see good for all. I really want that feeling also in them, that they whatever they do, be responsible, be always do things which are really giving back to the society, giving back to the nature, because there is a lot of pleasure in giving back instead of consuming and just keep on consuming. This is what I see, and I really want them to to ace and to be pioneers in their actions, and really not only just do it, but also inspire the forthcoming generations with their actions.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. We need more mothers like you then. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. What do you remember from our parents' time? I mean, when they were alive? what did they do right for us? I don't know how successful we are in our lives, but it sure looks like we are doing okay. What do you think they must have done right? And then do you feel any gratitude for how they have brought us? Because now we are parents, so we can understand how difficult it is to raise kids.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in case particularly for our parents, I think I really feel grateful to the fact that they both have were working and again giving it back to the society. Our father was in Air Force. He was really there to secure the nation, to really give it back to the nation. Our mother was a teacher. So really building the whole society, building the future generations. So with this intent of giving back to the nation, giving back to the society, really transforming the societies with their actions, had really done wonders to me, and I am hoping also to you. Giving us that DNA of change, of bringing change, and that has really helped also to me particularly in terms of getting a vision of doing things for good, for others, and for also always remain thankful to what we have.
Exactly.
I think there's a lot, of course, everybody learned from their parents, but this is particularly that I got from our parents, and also the fact that you really have to be fearless. In whatever field you go, in whatever things you do, you should not worry about the consequences. Be fearless, be open, be inclusive, and be always giving is what I've learned, and I will really remain. We have no words to thank them, but we are like always remain grateful in every breath of us, saying that thank you for giving us those values, those visions, and those feelings for really going forward. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the way they brought us with so much hard work, Dad used to live in other cities because of his transfer as a Air Force professional, and then our mother used to stay with us in New Delhi as a teacher, and she raised us. The kind of values they have provided us, and the kind of upbringing they had given us really are the reason what we are today. Like yourself, I would also like to thank them a lot, and I understand the struggle that they have gone through as a parent, and something that you can never pay back, the things that they or the parents do for their kids. Thank you. So on a more philosophical now that we are touching the personal aspects, what is your philosophy in life, Shelly, and why do you believe in that?
Yeah, I think my philosophy in life, like I also touched upon briefly before, is that my philosophy is to really do good for others, and also always be open in thinking. I really, if I would say personally, my nature, my behavior is such that I really would like to explore new things, new ways of living, meeting new people, exploring life. Professionally, I think my philosophy is to learn, keep learning. There is no end to it. And then I do not like to work in silos. I do not believe that there is only one field for me. I think that was the precise reason why I really hopped on from geography to planning to international development sector, to different themes that I got to really work on. So these are the two facets of my philosophy, both at personal level and professional level, is to be really open, be giving, be flexible, be adaptable, and always feel confident of whatever you're doing is really good, and always have a feeling of giving it back to the society, back to the nature. This is what I believe in, and this really keeps me going. And as I said, I really hope to continue with my dream of exploring new areas, new horizons of research, of studying, and again gaining knowledge to give it back to the society. Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. Really nice. So I think I'm done with the questions. Do you have any last words that you want to share about anything that you want to talk about in general or anything?
No, I think I just would like to thank you particularly for giving me this opportunity of speaking my heart and my mind out. And I hope we really get an opportunity to really listen into more such diversified, more such really exciting brains around the world. And I really look forward to learn a lot from your podcast, because I learned that that there are so many great minds around the world who are really working continuously to the better of the society, and they are the people who are also speaking on your podcast. So I really look forward to learning from your series and also from the life that we are envisioning. Thank you, and all the best to your series.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Please support this podcast by liking, commenting, sharing it with your friends, and also subscribing to this channel. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.